Now then, how you doing? I hope you're well. The village of Wycoller in Lancashire is famous for several reasons. The first, and probably the most well known, is its connection to the Bronte Sisters, who lived in the area and visited the village regularly. It's also known for three very old ancient bridges that cross Wycoller Beck. Now, I love painting bridges. The older and more decrepit, the better. Wonky is a whole different ballgame though. This is Bronte country, and these are the moors above Wycoller, an area known as the Forest of Trawden, bursting with wildlife and sheep. But what is so special about the area, you might ask? Well, this is me walking along part of the Bronte Way. Not so much a long-distance footpath as a pilgrimage to the lives and work of the Bronte Sisters. I'm on my way to the village of Wycoller, nestling down there in the valley. In the distance you can see Pendle Hill. Well, before taking the path down into the village, however, we must pause to admire this curious structure. It's called the Atom, a panopticon no less, one of four that can be found scattered throughout Lancashire. This one dates back to 2006. This standing stone is much older, and the nearby stone walls, known as Vachery walls, predate the more common design with which most of us are more familiar and are probably medieval, dating back to the 14th century. Wycoller itself is a historic settlement dating back beyond 1000 BC. One frequent visitor in much later years was none other than Charlotte Bronte, and Wycoller Hall, seen here, itself dating back to the 16th century, is believed to be the inspiration for Ferndean Manor in Charlotte's novel Jane Eyre. Well, the hall may be in ruins, but it still manages to exude drama and atmosphere. And it's easy to imagine how it might have inspired the young Bronte back in the day. As well as the Bronte connection, Wycoller is also famous for the three ancient bridges that cross Wycoller Beck. This is Clam Bridge, consisting of a single 12-foot long grit stone slab. A little further downstream we have Clapper Bridge, also sometimes referred to as the Druids Bridge, Weaver's Bridge or Hall Bridge. Legends abound as to its origins, and despite the fact that it has stood the test of time, it has been rebuilt several times following heavy floods. All of which brings us to the Packhorse Bridge, sometimes referred to as Sally's Bridge. The paving slabs that form the walkway have been worn smooth over the years. Its arches are not equal to each other, and the base stones are not level, all of which give the bridge a slightly dodgy, precarious looking appearance. Well, if you're a movie fan, the bridge may seem familiar. Jenny Agutter was seen sitting on the bridge in the 1970 classic film The Railway Children. As bridges go, it's old and extremely wonky. The setting with the trees in the background and the long grass in the foreground make for a tantalising composition though. This is one that just simply has to be painted. So, where to start? Well, on this occasion I've decided to dive straight in without any pre-drawing or pre-planning at all and begin with a loose wet in wet wash. I've thoroughly wet my paper with clean water and the first colour up will be cadmium yellow. Where to apply it though? I have no pencil guidelines, so with little more than a brief glance at the source photograph, I'm just going to lay it down in places where I imagine the majority of foliage and vegetation to be. The second colour up is Prussian blue. No surprises here. I'm going to apply it primarily to sky areas, but I also want to work it into the yellow, encouraging the two colours to bleed together. And if they start to form green, then I won't be unhappy about that. In other words, while I see blue as being critical for the sky, I can also see it as representing some of the darker areas perhaps within the trees. It's a loose wet in wet wash, so at this early stage I don't want to worry about specifics. If anything, I think I would describe what I'm after as an impression. Really nothing more elaborate than that. My go-to mix for a basic, fresh-looking green is cadmium yellow and Prussian blue. Well, these two colours can be adjusted and modified quite extensively without any additional colours. Adding extra cadmium yellow increases its vibrancy and warmth, while adding extra Prussian blue darkens it and cools it off. Between the two, a broad range of different greens can be produced. It just comes down to a willingness to play around with them and experiment a little. You may be interested to know that back in the early days of my painting career, those were the two greens I had in my paint box: sap green and olive green. When I took it upon myself to overhaul my paint box by evicting all the colours that I had never used and some that I rarely used, I also made an executive decision at that point to do away with the greens and have a go at mixing them myself, and that's what I've done ever since. I've always found self-mixed greens to be more natural looking, possibly in part because I'm using colours from my palette that I use elsewhere, which may account for how well they integrate. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, then please do hit the like button. It really does make a difference. And if you'd like to see more, why not become a studio member of my YouTube channel? With that, you'll get instant access to the full-length, non-time-lapsed version of the demonstration from which this has just been a very small extract, along with a bursting back catalogue of full-length demonstrations and tutorials, all for you to enjoy at any time. To subscribe, well, just hit that join button. There are other sign-up options available, such as my online tuition service. If you want to take a look at those, you'll find full details in the video description below. And that's all from me for now. Until next time, take care.